Going, guys, it's your favorite entrepreneur, Elder Tony Williams. I'm a real estate investor, real estate agent, and I post content every single week here on the channel. If it's your first time, welcome. I highly recommend you go to the beginning of the channel because we post a lot of videos about making money, business, and finance. With that, let's get into the video. So in this video, I want to talk about how my tenants stopped paying rent. And if you're familiar on what's going on, if your tenants stop paying rent, you cannot evict them. I love our government. First off, I want to start by saying no one is to blame for this. It's not the tenant's fault, and it's certainly not the landlord's fault as well, due to the policies that were passed that stopped a lot of businesses from being able to operate. That put a lot of people out of jobs. It made the unemployment rate go extremely high, and most people can't afford the basic bills that they had before the pandemic hit. Luckily for me, most of my tenants work in the medical field, where its supply of jobs is available for people that work in the medical field. I have a lot of nurses inside of my properties and home health aides that are well employed at this current moment during the pandemic. However, I do have a tenant that did stop paying rent, and I want to explain what I did in return when she did stop paying rent. Now, to give you a better idea of the entire story, I want to go back to when this so-called tenant first moved into the property, or first submitted an application through me to be able to move into the property. So if you're a landlord like me and you really want to scale your business, you come up with a standard of criteria as a tenant has to meet to be able to move into your property. So my standards of criteria for this tenant, or any tenant, to be able to move into my property was you had to make 3 times as much as rent. You had to have no prior evictions, and you can't have a criminal record. So which one of these 3 criteria did you think this tenant didn't meet? If you guessed having prior evictions, you are correct, my friend. Now, I typically do not let tenants at all move into my property who has had prior evictions. I've had a lot of people submit applications. If they have prior evictions, even before they submit an application, I tell them, hey, don't apply, because that automatically disqualifies you from moving into one of my properties. It's just something that I've learned, and I found out that a lot of people are creatures of habit, and if they've been evicted one time, they'll get evicted again. Now, on this one, what made me accept having a tenant that had a prior eviction was my property manager. My property manager vouched for this person and said that they did the digging, the previous eviction was not on them, and to give them another chance. So with this being said, I trusted my property manager, I believed them, and I said, okay, let's do it. Let them move in. I'll give them a chance, even though they had a prior eviction. Now, even before the pandemic hit, this specific tenant was always late on rent. They were always late on paying their water and sewer. This was going on, like I said, way before the pandemic we started having these problems. And it happened so short a time. The tenant moved in, and after about 3 months, that's when we started running into the problems. And then the pandemic hit. Once the pandemic hit, and I heard they came out with a law to where you cannot evict tenants, this particular property went on my radar at the top of the scale because I knew what I was in for. And guess who stopped paying rent? You guessed it. The one that was on the top of my radar, and the one we are talking about today, stopped paying rent. After getting more details from the tenant, this specific tenant quit their job. They weren't laid off because this specific tenant was in the medical field. It's this abundance of jobs available. And the reason for her quitting her job, she got pregnant. Quit her job, and decided, hey, I'm just gonna collect unemployment, and I can't get evicted from my property, so I'm good for now. And let me say this, most tenants are not like this. It's just this particular tenant is like this. And this not directed at any other tenants saying that, oh, everyone's like that. If you can't make your monthly payments or you can't make your bills, that you're just doing it because the laws are in your favor at the moment. That is not the case. And you can imagine how hot I was after all of this going down. Me already knowing what was probably or most likely gonna happen from me just doing my calculations, looking at the tenants past, looking at what they might do in the future, and that coming true, I was extremely upset, but no one was to blame but myself for not sticking to my rules and guidelines. That's why I say, before you start renting properties, come up with guidelines, strict guidelines during the application process that you will not stray from. You have to stick that out and don't move no matter what's said, what emotions are involved. You have to be very analytical and stick with what you say so you can be protected in the end. So here's what I did. So the tenants stopped paying their rent. They stopped paying their water. They stopped paying their sewer. I could not evict. I still filed for an eviction for that property, but my eviction date was pushed into 2021. If you're looking at this video, I'm pretty sure the government is going to extend the eviction moratorium and the tenants are still going to live in the property. So here I am with one of my properties, a tenant living in it. I'm still paying taxes. I'm still paying water and sewer for this property. And I'm also still paying all the maintenance on this property while the tenant is still living inside of this property. Yes, it's true. Being a landlord comes with so many obstacles and you have to account for so many things, but a pandemic was something that we just couldn't account for. Yeah, you can have 6 months expenses saved up, you can even have a year expenses saved up, but if a lot of your properties go vacant without having anyone move into them, or with people living inside the properties, you're not able to evict that tenant. These are costs that we just couldn't look at in the future and saying, hey, we're gonna have a pandemic. How about we have 2 years worth of expenses saved up to be able to cover these properties? No one knew, no one is to blame. Luckily, my market is Cleveland, Ohio. And in Cleveland, Ohio, they have a lot of programs that can help tenants with paying their rent. So what we did is we got the tenant all signed up. She filled out everything to be able to have a rental assistance program jump in and be able to help her in paying her rent. So what they did is they actually reached out to me. I reached out to them. We explained how much she was behind, because at this time she's about three months behind, and it's January at the moment. She's about 3 months behind on rent, and that's about $2,700, and that's not even including the water and sewer she's behind. So what the rental assistance place said, they won't be able to cover the water and sewer she's behind. They can only cover the rent she's behind. And then they can reimburse me for my eviction filing fees. But they said if I accept this, they'll send me the check for the 3 months that she's behind, and we'll be good until February. So what did I do? I accepted the check. I took the check because the last thing I want to do is put somebody out on the street and evict them. I just want to get what I can while I can, because we're all having a hard time right now during this pandemic. And if you're a landlord, I suggest you do the same thing. Get on the phone with your tenants, see what they can do to be able to fill out different programs or fill out for assistance in certain areas to be able to help get the money to you so you can stay afloat during this pandemic. And then after the pandemic is over, hopefully your tenants is back to work. Hopefully everything is back to normal, or maybe the eviction moratorium is lifted and then a tenant will finally move out of your property so you can do renovations and move someone else in there that will pay. Hey, if you liked the video, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. I drop videos like this every single week, dropping knowledge, my knowledge in the business of being a real estate investor, my knowledge of just being a business owner in general, and giving you guys tips. With that, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.